possible that Bill Beatty loved his castle so much that he refused to leave even in death. Old-timers remember that Sarah Beatty often held seances trying to communicate with them. When the second boys' school moved out of the castle, many of the faculty and students remained convinced the premises were haunted.
I can only speak of the men that were in my life, and that was my dad and his friends.
Right.
Those are the men that I grew up going fishing and, spending time with.
Yeah.
And they were all pretty hardcore. They were gentlemen. I mean, they weren't assholes. They were nice men, but they were hardcore. They were hard-working men.
Yeah, but it wasn't, I think the part of it that maybe is interesting is that it's not like I had to, clean the palate. It's not like I had to wipe away a bunch of knowledge and sort of performance choices that I did as Saul. Because Saul was this very, he was a presentation. He said in the first time you see him, look, this isn't who I am. My name is Saul. My name is not Saul Goodman. I'm James McGill. This is a front. The whole thing's a front.
Right.
But it's very easy to play a person one way at their office and then go, okay, now we're gonna take that guy, he's gonna walk into this house and there's his brother who's sick. I can do it. I can take the hit, ego-wise or whatever. But more importantly, like, how do you actually what does your day look like? And he goes, oh, okay, here's what you do. You get to set, you've learned your lines, you work. At lunch, you study your lines. You get to set, you work. You ask them to make you dinner, like a sandwich or something from the cart.
If you get a patient who has chronic anxiety, then I think you're confronted with an entirely different problem. And the first task here is the same as the first task in any serious problem, and that is the task of diagnosis. You have to try to find out first, before you do anything at all, what is the reason, what is the basis for this chronic anxiety. And so we have drugs which are called anti-anxiety drugs, drugs which are referred to as antipsychotic drugs, and antidepressant drugs. There is one group which is particularly useful in treating many aspects of anxiety. These are the so-called minor tranquilizers. Just to list them, they are the old-fashioned barbiturates. There's meprobamate, the chlordiaze epoxide, and diazepam. These are the usual drugs for anxiety. Those patients who were dying knew that they were dying. This wasn't the issue. What they were mostly interested in is having someone there with them who would more or less comfort them by their presence. I've never really discovered how to help a patient die favorably. The real problem in a dying patient is the problem of desertion, separation, and loneliness. We don't know what death is. We can't conceptualize it. But we all know what it's like to be alone and afraid and in the dark. And this is what I take as my cue. I assume that every patient who is dying is terribly frightened about being alone. And I do whatever is necessary to give the patient the feeling that somebody is moving along with them.
One of the things I think about the movie is that it's all about vulnerability, right? Like, the more you're able to be vulnerable to whatever it is in the world, we put all these things up, you have to, Every one of us has a different thing and a million different things that we use and whatever. And to be an adult, that sense of vulnerability, see who you really are. I think that's what we want, is like, I would hope we all want to be able to be open with each other.
Hi, you've reached someone with a lot of social anxiety. I appreciate you inviting me to the thing, but I am not coming. Hi, please leave your name and the time of your birth. Hi, you've reached... I can't go to her.
So, when I was in junior high school,
Yeah.
I don't know what was going on in my head, but we had this assignment that was like, what would you do the last day? This is eighth grade.
Okay.
And I remember classmates just coming up with really boring, just awful things that they would do. You know, you sit there and stuff like that. Last day on Earth. And I don't know if I was funny or what, but I wrote that off on the last day alive. Go down to the main street of Valley Stream, New York, where I grew up, and I'd just destroy everything, like smash in windows, light stores on fire. I thought it was great. And then I didn't get a grade on it. The teacher was like, will you see me after class? And she had this talk with me and then sent me to the school psychologist. And so I felt immediately like I was in trouble, but not even for graffiti. I felt like I was in trouble.
I think there's part of it in me where I kind of recognize the absurdity of what I'm doing, and the only way that I can move past the absurdity of it is to commit to it in a place where no one can say that it's absurd anymore. I have this strong belief in the unconscious, that it is driving us. It's like this massive river that we're floating on, and we're sort of unaware, obviously, sometimes of where we're going. I don't think we have much control over it, because that brings in the question of like fate, destiny, and free will. But I believe that there's a way in which you can kind of hop onto, in performance as an actor, like onto another river a little bit. If you work hard enough, you kind of like move your unconscious into a space.
Just looking for a confrontation. I'd get so heated up that, I was looking for trouble. And thank God I never found it. Thank God a lot of stuff never happened to me.
What do you think you were fighting against?
I think it was as being as ungrateful as I could, because I was hanging out at a joint called the Cafe Central on 74th and Amsterdam. And there was a lot of great actors that hung out in there. And I would talk theory with these guys. They were working, and I was doing it. And I just really beat myself up.
Wealthy men being told they are not allowed to use mayonnaise. A group of wealthy men being told they are not allowed to use mayonnaise anymore. What?
I beg to differ.
No.
Show me where it says that.
There were like 3 months where I just had no idea what to do next, and what was most scary was after about a month of it, I didn't care that I didn't know what to do next. I was trying to make myself this painless android. What happens is then that if you keep running into people like that, their job in life is to infect you so that they don't have to keep doing that, and then you get that voice. And then they've won. So all the times that you keep doubting yourself, what you're doing is you let some dull, uncreative, uncourageous person in your past, you're letting them win when you let that voice win. You've let someone in your past, and if you really sit and meditate on it, you can almost trace the voice back to specific people. There's people that you'll meet that will inspire you and help you along, but for as many of those people that you meet, you'll also meet people going, no, it doesn't work that way, you have to do this, and that's the way it works, and people don't want us to, and you can choose to internalize either voice. And sometimes you don't get to control which voice wins on which day. All the negative voices, all the negative people that you meet do not think that they are negative, uncreative people. They think they are helping you. Right. They are doing it out of a genuine sense of concern and care. They think they are helping you avoid pain and disappointment and humiliation, and all they're doing is stifling you. I've run into club owners that were genuinely amazing in terms of moving along, and I've run into club owners where it was like, if you want to fail in comedy, follow this person's advice to the letter.
Right, because I like to have a lot of different things to focus on. Sometimes I wonder if like there is like a quantitative thing where like part of, like all my things suffer.
Right.
I was talking to a friend about what you want to accomplish in every decade of your life, and I think like I certainly in my teens and my early 20s like just wanted to be cool, and then in my mid to late 20s I wanted to be around really smart people, and in my 30s I found myself being attracted to like incredibly talented people, and as I get in my later 30s I want to be around like kind people. Right, because I like to have a lot of different things to focus on. Right, because I like to have a lot of different things to focus on. Sometimes I wonder if like there is like a quantitative thing where like part of, like all my things suffer.
Right.
I was talking to a friend about what you want to accomplish in every decade of your life. And
but it's like I was in a bubble. It was like I was in a submarine because I was, in the writer's room, in the edit room, I was on the stage. So now it just ends. And it's like you come out of this submarine and you're like, this is where I live? You're like, my kids are 12? Yeah, it's really a weird feeling. But there's also excitement because now you have all this, you have time, you got money now, you got a little bit of fame, whatever. This is going to be cool. Let's see what happens.
It seems impossible in this day and age we might discover an entirely new species of animal. However, we must remember it was only 70 years ago that the giant panda of China was first observed in the wild by Western man. Until then, it too was regarded as nothing more than a mythological creature. Was it possible that Bill Beatty loved his castle so much that he refused to leave even in death? Old-timers remember that Sarah Beatty often held seances trying to communicate with people. When the second boys' school moved out of the castle, many of the faculty and students remained convinced the premises were haunted. The authorities believe that the hitchhiker is familiar with the Toronto area and the Seattle, Washington area. He may be masquerading as Philip Innes Fraser. Among the items never recovered, Philip Fraser's birth certificate, visa, passport, and checkbook.
I can only speak of the men that were in my life, and my dad and his friends.
Right.
Those are the men that I grew up going fishing and, spending the time with.
Yeah.
And they were all pretty hardcore. They were gentlemen. I mean, they weren't assholes. They were nice men, but they were hardcore. They were hard-working men.
A wild turkey bragging about his mansion. I have the best fucking mansion, but it's bigger than yours, fucker!
our broadcast, Mac McDonald learned that he had a daughter named Sherry. The long-awaited news came from a viewer in Dallas, Texas, Mary Helen Carr, Sherry's mom. Unlike many of the reunions we have featured, the end of this search evoked decidedly mixed emotions. For Mac, Mary Helen, and especially for their daughter Sherry, who had been raised by a loving and caring stepfather. William John Wood was last seen in Reno, Nevada in March of 1991, still using the name Max Carson. He tried to run one of his scams on a model he had known in Las Vegas. When she confronted him with his past, he disappeared. Authorities believe he may be operating anywhere in the country, though he seems to prefer Florida, Nevada, or Southern California. They are certain that he is still masquerading as a film producer or talent agent.
What is a man? 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 A miserable little pile of secrets.
Nathan Neesmith's companions were never found. A large-scale search mounted by the Coast Guard yielded no trace of the life raft or the hatch cover. But Nathan and his family never gave up hope that the three men might somehow have survived. It seemed a futile hope until a strange telephone call was made to the home of Nathan's sister, Onita. It must be pointed out that thousands of people, none of whom have ever heard of Medjugorje, kick drug habits each year. Yet Jill Jensen is convinced that her pilgrimage was pivotal to her recovery. Rita Klaus, suffering from an incurable disease, also believes that the Virgin of Medjugorje interceded to heal her, even though Rita never left her own home. To most of us, it seems far-fetched to think that physical healing can occur simply because one travels to the scene of a religious vision. Yet for those who've watched a loved one suffer pain, which modern medicine cannot alleviate, the hope of a miracle flickers persistently, if dimly, at the back of the logical mind. To most of us, it seems far-fetched to think that physical healing can occur simply because one travels to the scene of a religious vision. Even in her victory to have the investigation reopened, Sue Johnson has met with defeat. Many of the case files and much of the physical evidence has been misplaced or long since discarded. Detectives have little to go on, save the faint hope that a new eyewitness will come forward. There's one final chilling detail in the abduction of Angela Hammond. After she screamed into the phone, Rob Schaefer heard another person speak, most likely her abductor. All he said was, "I didn't need to use the phone anyway." Before she disappeared, Angie described the suspect as a filthy, bearded man who wore glasses and was dressed in overalls. John and Eleanor's search came to an end the night of our broadcast, when a viewer in Elmira, Pennsylvania, recognized their long-lost daughter as one of his co-workers, Sally Wright. It is difficult to imagine. It seems impossible that in this day and age, we might discover an entirely new species of animal. It is difficult to imagine that a creature like the abominable snowman actually exists. Most of us dismiss him as a fanciful legend. But for the native Sherpas of the Himalayas, the Yeti is very real and very much alive. Their belief is shared by a number of Western explorers, most of whom have never seen a Yeti, but remain convinced that such animals do roam the high plateaus of the Asian wilderness. It seems impossible that in this day and age, we might discover an entirely new species of animal. In late 1987, Danny Gordon received an average of 500 telephone calls about UFOs each month. Today, the calls have dwindled to approximately 50 per month. The UFO heyday in Woodville is apparently drawn to a close. Danny Gordon's health and life are back to normal. But if history is any indicator, sometime soon, in another small town, someone else will look up, and his or her life will never be the same.
Is it possible that Bill Beatty loved his castle so much?
According to official FBI files, on any given day, an estimated 40 banks in the United States are robbed at gunpoint. November 13th, 1991, a bank in Henderson, Nevada was added to the list. It was a frightening, traumatic experience for the bank employees, fearing retribution would ask that their identities be concealed. It began an hour before opening. The bank manager was at his desk, alone, seemingly secure behind locked doors.
Yeah, but it wasn't, I think the part of it that maybe is interesting is that it's not like I had to, clean the palate. It's not like I had to wipe away a bunch of knowledge and sort of performance choices that I did as Saul. Because Saul was this very, he was a presentation. He said in the first time you see him, look, this isn't who I am. My name is Saul. My name is not Saul Goodman. James McGill.
I think it goes back to what we've already been talking about a bit, which is that means they believe it. They're not been manipulated. I don't think it is possible clearly to manipulate people into an emotional response. I wouldn't be very content with being part of that. People still love them. In fact, it gets used for grief therapy to help people to get through that period if it happens to them. It's something to do with the fact that Anthony Minghella was directing something that he'd written. It's beautifully written. It has something to do with the fact that Juliet Stevenson and I had worked a lot together in the theatre, so there's a lot of knowledge of each other in the room and trust. So you know that it's possible to try things that are going to fail. You know that it's possible. Because, like most actors, I don't enjoy watching myself because all you see is what you've got wrong. Actually, one of your great actresses, Kate Blanchett, said at some point, the point about a horizon is that you look at it and you move towards it and it only gets further away. You never actually get there. And, one has so many examples of people like Judi Dench at 80, still hungry, to use your word, and still wanting to be working. Well, you have to hold your finger up to the wind at all times, and the wind changes. So you can't know anything. I worked with a wonderful director called Richard Wilson, who you may know here as an actor as Victor Meldrew, if that series came out here. But anyway, he's a big star in England, but he's also a wonderful theatre director. The only word he ever used on a really regular basis directing is about openness. And that's something you can almost taste if somebody's being truly open. And it's something I look for as a director too. I don't know whether that's attitude or background or training or how much preparation you've done, but somehow it all arrives at that word. Sometimes it's about selfishness. It depends on the character you're playing. You can't be passive. There's a kind of active nature to being open and a readiness. It's not sitting back. Generosity is part of it, but making a gift of yourself is quite an active thing to do, and quite a challenging thing to do to your fellow actor or to the audience. It's not a safe place to be at all.
Those patients who were dying knew that they were dying, what they were mostly interested in is having someone there with them who would more or less comfort them by their presence. I've never really discovered how to help a patient die favorably. The real problem in a dying patient is a problem of desertion, separation, and loneliness. We don't know what death is. We can't conceptualize it, but we all know what it's like to be alone and afraid and in the dark. And this is what I take as my cue. I assume that every patient who is dying is terribly frightened about being alone. And I do whatever is necessary to give the patient the feeling that somebody is moving along with them. Anti-anxiety drugs, drugs which are referred to as antipsychotic drugs, and antidepressant drugs. There is one group which is particularly useful in treating many aspects of anxiety. These are the so-called minor drugs.
No, I'm moved out here to be a filmmaker, to make these fight movies. And nothing was happening for 6 years. I was a PA.
Were you making short films? Were you writing?
No, because I was writing. I think I was too self-conscious to say I'm going to direct. I was not a. I'm from Oklahoma. You don't. If you say what you want to do, if you're boisterous at all or confident, it's an ugly quality. No, I moved out here to be a filmmaker, to write movies. And nothing was happening for 6 years. I was just a PA.
Were you making short films? Were you writing?
No, because I was writing. I think I was too.
That it is driving us. It's like this massive river that we're floating on. We're sort of unaware, obviously, sometimes where we're going. I don't think we have much control over it because that brings in the question of like fate, destiny, and free will. But I believe that there's a way in which you can kind of hop onto in performance as an actor, like onto another river a little bit. If you work hard enough, you kind of like move your unconscious into a space. I think there's part of it in me where I kind of recognize the absurdity of what I'm doing, and the only way that I can move past the absurdity of it is to commit to it in a place where no one can say that it's absurd anymore. I have this strong belief in the unconscious that it is driving us. It's like massive river that we're floating on, and we're sort of unaware, obviously, sometimes where we're going. And I don't think we have much over it, because that brings in the question of like fate,
destiny, and free will. But
I believe that
there's a way in which you can kind of
hop on to a
performance as an actor, like onto another river a little bit.
If you work hard enough, you kind of like
move your unconscious into a space.
Mainly I sensed a great deal of negativity and entropy in music. There's a disintegration going on that we really have to address. Values have been lessened to a great degree. VH1's been pretty cool. They don't show too much craziness on their channel. And other Viacom channels do. So I think that we should address this as a community as to what it's doing to culture. People can say all they want to, but there's no reason for these kids to listen to music and then go shoot somebody. But there's something that's triggering these buttons.
I can only speak of the men that were in my life, and that was my dad and his friends. Right. Those are the men that I grew up going fishing and, spending time with. Yeah. And they were all pretty hardcore. They were gentlemen. I mean, they weren't assholes. They were nice men, but they were hardcore. They were hard-working men.
had to be.
Gary.
Yeah. Yeah, what would be my other name if there had to be?
Gary.
Yeah. Yeah, what would be my other name if there had to be?
Gary.
Yeah. Yeah, what would be my other name if there had to be?
Gary.
Yeah. Yeah, what would be my other name if there had to be?
Gary.
Yeah. Yeah, what would be my other name if there had to be?
Gary.
Isn't there any way over this? Some way to escape?
No. Elijah's coming in 6 months.
Isn't there any way off of this place? Isn't there any way off of this place?
I did some twice-baked potatoes. So we take the twice-baked potatoes.
So that's right along with the steak.
Right with the steak.
Everything comes to the table high.
Yep.
It's a whole food juicer, a blender, a food processor, a stick blender, a hand mixer, ice cream maker, ice crusher, meat grinder, chopper, cheese grater, peanut butter maker. It's a whole food juicer, a blender, a food processor, a stick blender, a hand mixer, ice cream maker, ice crusher, meat grinder, chopper, cheese grater, peanut butter maker. It's a whole food juicer, a blender, a food processor, a stick blender, a hand mixer, ice cream maker, ice crusher, meat grinder, chopper, cheese grater, peanut butter maker. It's a whole food juicer, a blender, a food processor, a stick blender, a hand mixer, ice cream maker, ice crusher, meat grinder, chopper, cheese grater, peanut butter maker.
What could be worse than a plague of locusts? About an invasion by so-called murder hornets? What could be worse than a plague of locusts? About an invasion by so-called murder hornets? What could be worse than a plague of locusts? About an invasion by so-called murder hornets?
I successfully know your password. I have asked you. Your login was david.com.
Yes. Yep, let's bleep that out.
What could be worse than a plague of locusts?
There was this guy stopped in like a muscle car. She pulled up next to him and had her window down with two little girls on her hood. Like, hey, wanna drag? And that's who raised me. You know, it's
a
hard
whole food juicer, a blender, a food processor, a stick blender, a hand mixer, ice cream maker, ice crusher, meat grinder, chopper, cheese grater, peanut butter maker.
On Earth live down here. You know the most
toxic creatures on Earth live down here. You know the most toxic creatures on Earth live down here. You know the most toxic creatures on Earth live down here. The venom of a land animal is nothing by comparison. You know the most toxic creatures on Earth live down here. The venom of a land animal is nothing by comparison.
Is none of my business, but what other people think of me is none of my business. What other people think of me is none of my business. What other people think of me is none of my business. But I also know that this show is for the kids out there who are looking for some type of guidance.
A whole pile of fries. Waffle fries. Yeah, little waffle fries to go with our chickens. Like, let me tell you. We just made a whole pile of fries. Waffle fries. Yeah, little waffle fries to go with our chicken. Like, let me tell you.
Lisa, I'm crazy about
the question.
Will you please forgive me if I can...
You had me at tomorrow's not promised for any of us. And so, what are we doing today? That's the question.
And we just made a whole pile of fries.
Today's my birthday. 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 Today's my birthday.
Society made me what I am. That's bullshit.
Not being able to stand up straight, not being able to walk right, not being able to run. She's got coupons, tickets to a miracle service, and the family said, let's go. Not being able to stand up straight, not being able to walk right, not being able to run. She's got coupons, tickets to a miracle service, and the family said, let's go.
You know, the most toxic creatures on Earth live down here. You know, the most toxic creatures on Earth live down here. You know, the most toxic creatures on Earth live down here.
That must be quite the experience to be there. I'm thinking I should go walk the bridge this weekend. Just wanted to drop you a note. Hope you get the word out to many people, and they go home talking about it to their friends, tell their friends, etc., etc. I'm still pretty numb, but noticing more moments of really realizing Mike isn't coming home. Mike was driving pedal to San Francisco, watched the 49er game with his father on January 19th. He never made it there. I called Petaluma police and reported him missing that evening. The next morning, 2 officers came to my home.
People keep asking if I'm back, and I haven't really had an answer. But now, yeah, I'm thinking on. These people keep asking if I'm back, and I haven't really had an answer. Now, yeah, I'm thinking on. People keep asking if I'm back, and I haven't really had an answer. Now, yeah, I'm thinking on. People asking if I'm back, and I haven't really had an answer. Yeah, I'm thinking on.
Inside this vehicle. Well, when that vehicle ceases, for whatever reason, the driver, the soul, gets out and still, as far as I'm concerned, in my belief system, is able to exist. So what happens to the vehicle, the car, the body, doesn't affect the soul or the consciousness. So we're talking about the survival of consciousness and that energy, that love that we're connecting with. Right now, we're all physical beings.
Yeah.
Now, our soul, the energy of that soul is inside the vehicle.
Well, when that vehicle ceases, for whatever reason, the driver soul gets out. Still, as far as I know, my belief is able to exist. So what happens to the vehicle, the car, the body, doesn't affect the soul or the consciousness. So we're talking about survival of consciousness and that energy, that love that we're connecting with.
You're sitting in the best secret in the world. Nobody stumbles in here. You're sitting in the best kept secret in the world. Nobody stumbles in here. You're sitting in the best kept secret in the world. Nobody stumbles in here.
Oh man, that sucks. People ground and I really but now,
I got that chicken Mexicana dinner you snuck in the freezer's done.
Come on, not that frozen chicken that's been cooking in the freezer.
Remember, we put in the dry rice, frozen chicken breast, some water, a couple jars of salsa. We brought it to the right cooking temperature and then took it off the heat. And then, you little tauntaun, you tried to trick me by putting it in the freezer. This I gotta say. It's still hot. But is it cooked? Of course it is. The chicken is cooked all the way through. You tauntaun, you tried to trick me by putting it in the freezer. You tauntaun, you tried to trick me by putting it in the freezer. You tauntaun, you tried to trick me by putting it in the freezer. You tauntaun, you tried to trick me by putting it in the freezer. This I gotta say. You tauntaun, you tried to trick me by putting it in the freezer. You tauntaun, you tried to trick me by putting it in the freezer. You tauntaun, you tried to trick me by putting it in the freezer. Freeze.
What could be worse than a plague of locusts? How about an invasion by so-called murder hornets?
You know, the most toxic creatures on Earth live down here. The venom of a land animal is nothing by comparison.
Oh man, that sucks.
People keep asking if I'm back.
Hi, you've reached someone with a lot of social anxiety. I appreciate you inviting me to the thing, but I am not coming. Hi, please leave your name and the time of your birth. Hi, you've reached... I can't cover.
So, when I was in junior high school, I don't know.
Just looking for a confrontation. Just, I get so heated up that, yeah, I was looking for trouble. And thank God I never found it.
a person. I'm just a person. Touch me. I'm just a person.